This is Ready, Set, Reiki, a podcast about Reiki, the universal energy life force. From the curious beginner to the seasoned master teacher, welcoming all systems, all lineages, and all levels. Reiki is a journey and not a destination, and on this Ready, Set, Reiki journey, we refer to ourselves as guides rather than hosts, as we too are traveling, supporting each other, and learning on this Reiki journey as well. And with that said, I am your guide, Tracy Seawright. And today we have a wonderful guest, Ashley Carver. She is a spirit somatic embodiment guide, and she is trained to individuals and couples work through roadblocks that present themselves as keys to their deepest healing and authentic expression. She has the lived experiences of how embodiment of the nervous system regulation are key to our satisfaction, healing, and growth in this life. And she shares this with her clients through the lens of deepest special personality. Welcome, Ashley Carver, to Ready, Set, Reiki.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful introduction.
Lovely. And for our listeners, she has in the back a sign that says good vibes. So that's all what we're about here at Ready, Set, Reiki. I love it. I love it. All right. So I told our listeners just a little bit about you. So tell us about yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I really love your energy and the background of your podcast. So I really appreciate being invited to speak with you today. My background actually is in midwifery and birth work. So I completed training for and schooling to be a midwife. And then I had some really intense experiences a couple of years ago, all back to back with some births that I attended and some of my clients. So I got some really clear messaging at that point that I was supposed to be a midwife for a short period of time, but now that period was over and I had to shift and discover what my next path of service would be. And that kind of led me over the course of the next few years to somatic embodiment for my own healing and my own nervous system regulation. And then I completed some trainings and now I'm here as a somatic embodiment healing guide.
Wonderful. Beautiful. Beautiful. So when did somatic embodiment come into your life?
So I became aware of somatic embodiment, I guess maybe like a handful of years ago as I was working and learning about midwifery. And then I really kind of leaned in hard to somatic embodiment when I had those challenging experiences as a midwife. And it really showed me how amazing of a pathway this is for healing. So I kind of dove in at that point. But with regards to like general energy work, I started kind of dabbling in energy work and learned about Reiki actually after my daughter was born. So I had kind of experimented with it at that point, and then just bits and pieces picked up along the way from there.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love that. What a wonderful journey that this has taken you on. I mean, could you ever imagine when you started, you would be here?
Never, ever. Never, never, ever.
So with your work, what is the common misperception about what you do?
I think a lot of people, first of all, are kind of unaware of what somatic embodiment is. And even if people know or have the awareness of what it is, there's a tendency to maybe underestimate like the potency of this type of healing work in general. And I think it's understandable that it could be kind of confusing or hard to understand just from the words somatic embodiment, what it actually entails. And I think that is why I feel personally a big part of my work is educating people, like the public in general, on exactly what somatic embodiment is and how deeply it can affect the healing process in order to kind of guide people to their deepest desires that for some reason that is usually unknown to people in real time are kind of feeling like they're out of reach. So I feel like it's yeah, I feel like the misperception is that, first of all, it's kind of an unknown field to a lot of people. And second of all, it's this incredibly potent pathway that people kind of underestimate.
Wonderful, wonderful. So in your profession, what is something that everybody should start doing?
In my profession, what is something that everyone should start doing? I really feel like living the embodiment is important. So I think especially living in a place like I live in Sedona, Arizona, which is this kind of mecca in the United States of spiritual healing work, energy work. There, you throw a rock and there's an energy healer here. So you can for me, I can kind of feel in the field that there are varying levels of authenticity. And I think integrity and authenticity is really important. And I'm not saying people are kind of consciously being out of integrity, but I do think that there is a really big importance in, if we are sharing somatic embodiment and energy work and healing with others, we have also done the work ourselves, so we can kind of guide and create the space from that place.
Right. That's really well said. I mean, people sometimes just don't do the work. They don't. And then they wonder why it isn't happening for them. So you have to really do the work. Very, very
Yeah.
important.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So you've been on this journey for some time now. So what is something you wish your younger self knew about the profession you're doing today?
Oh my gosh. I feel I feel like my reality would be so different. So as a younger person, I feel like if I knew then, that the reasons that I was going through those experiences, those challenging experiences of my younger years, was to prepare me to be this sort of embodied person that I am now. And it was through this pathway of somatic embodiment and nervous system regulation and like deep inner child healing. I think it would have given me the perspective then that everything would have turned out okay, which would have kind of like just changed my whole world. Because I feel like as a younger person, when I was in it, I was just in it, and it was just like the biggest thing ever that was happening, all these challenging experiences, and it's hard to kind of see out of that. So yeah, if I could go back now, which I do go back now, and I go back to my younger selves and I tell them like, it's going to be okay, you're doing great, like, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm here today, you know? So yeah, I really appreciate the question, because I feel like it is super important to kind of go back and share wisdom with your younger self as you gain it as an older person.
Yeah, beautiful. I love that. Going back and just letting yourself know it's going to be all right. It's going to be
Yeah.
okay. I love
Yeah,
that.
totally.
So you are in Sedona, where you have a wonderful variety of healers and practitioners. So when it's time for you to get your energetic tune up, what are some qualities that you look for in a practitioner, energy healer, or a somatic embodiment professional?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I feel like I'm super picky. But yeah, I really, really value the embodiment piece, of course, like I keep saying, and the feeling that these people who are interacting with my energy field are really living their teachings and living their work, and that it's their way of life and not just a way for them to make money that isn't aligned with how they live their life outside of their service. But aside from that, I really love when it actually works, like when I can feel measurable changes. And I think that comes from a couple of different pieces. The first of which goes back to like me trusting them and being able to kind of surrender. And if I'm able to kind of surrender and trust, I feel that their vibration and these qualities that are important to me are able to kind of go deeper within my energy experience and have more profound effects. So yeah.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love that. So what advice would you give someone who is just entering this profession?
Yeah, Yeah, I love this question. I love all these questions of like sharing and going back. It's because I think it's so important. But I would just say that, yeah, for people just entering, just trusting that you are where you're meant to be, and there are people who are looking for exactly what you have to offer, and that you are needed. And to offer, I think it's important. Different people have different spiritual beliefs, but my perspective is when someone offers their life in service to divine will, or like divine consciousness or source energy, whatever people want to call it, it's not really about them as an individual. It's more about how we can become a channel for the divine to work in our collective reality, which I think can be an important shift. I think a lot of people start out and they have like imposter syndrome, you know?
Mm.
So I think it's important to kind of get the ego out of the way. And it's like, it's not about you are the channel. And if you can just kind of allow yourself to be that hollow bone, then whatever comes through is just exactly what's supposed to be happening. And it's all perfect.
Wonderful. And that's kind of interesting because I had just prior to our interview today, I read kind of a comment from actually, she was one of my teachers, and she had said about how people collecting all these certificates is a real thing because they have this imposter syndrome and they feel that if they keep collecting this, that it will make them a better teacher versus just going out and doing this and being of service and working with people. So it's very interesting that you said that and you brought that up today, because it seems like it's a real thing that you feel like if I just get that one more certificate, it'll make me feel like I can do this.
Totally.
And the interesting point my teacher made is, you know, if you feel called to do this, you have every right to be there to do it. And that's all that matters.
Yeah.
You know, versus having 25 different certificates.
Totally. And I feel like we're creating a new world in this kind of like spiritual, energetic healing place. But at the same time, our mind wants us to be valid in the eyes of like the collective, in the eyes of like the mainstream. And that's just the way of the mainstream. It's like you go to school, you get a degree, you get accomplishments at your job so you can move up in the world. And I think it's totally different when you're in the energy healing space. And people can choose to do that because that's available. But I also think kind of like dropping out of that mental way of thinking about things and just allowing yourself to be in service, like you said, and like your teacher is saying, it's a different vibration that you're able to offer from that place.
Right, right. And the energy will shut it down too. If you're ready, it's going to flow. Yeah. If not, it's going to put all these roadblocks. You'll get sick. Something will happen. You know, you can't schedule with that person. So it shuts it down. If it's meant to be, it's going to happen.
Totally. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, absolutely. So what books do you recommend?
I'm someone who used to be so like that, so in the mental realms, that I would just devour all of these books, like how some people do certificates. So I have different books related to different aspects of my work. For my work with couples, I really love the books Getting the Love You Want by Harville Hendrix and Wired for Love by Stan Tatkin. And for work with just people in general, I love The Body Keeps the Score. Most people have heard of that book by Bessel van der Kolk. And for work with women specifically, which I do a lot of, I love Come As You Are by Emily Nagoski.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, we all have that season of where we're, you know, looking and getting as many books as we can, and in addition to taking the trainings. So we all seem to go through that time in our lives where we're trying to collect as much as we can. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So, what other services do you offer? Do you offer classes online, sessions online, in person?
Yeah, I do work online and in person. So my main focus is trauma-informed somatic embodiment healing, but I also incorporate breath work and like the holographic or quantum healing, a lot of inner child work, family dynamic work or parts work, internal family systems, some chakra work and energy healing too. And I do that in person in Sedona, but I also work online with anyone, anywhere in the world. And every 2 months, I do a free workshop that has like a different topic. And that's a good way, I think, for people to kind of be able to experience for free the kind of energy and like the space that I can hold. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. So how can our listeners get in touch with you? They're listening to this. They're like, yes, this is my person. I want to move forward with her. So how can they get in touch with you?
First of all, I love those people. I love all people, but yes, thank you for listening to this beautiful podcast. And if it's feeling like an alignment, people can find me through my website, which is ashleycarver.com, or on Instagram. My Instagram is at Ashley Anamkara, and Anamkara is Anamcara. And then, yeah, like I said, I'm also hosting coming up. I'm not sure when this podcast will air, but like I said, every 2 months I offer a free online workshop. My last workshop, which is available on my website still as a recording, was how to connect with your spirit babies. So like the energy of your future children. My next workshop is for couples, and I'm hosting that with my husband. So it's going to be really special, and that will be coming up in March. So like I said, not sure when this will air, but if you're hearing this and it's not March yet, that will be available too.
Wonderful, wonderful. I love it. So this ends our section where I'm asking you questions, our standard Ready, Set, Reiki questions. And normally I would pass it over to my co-guide, Millie Pampina, but today we're so lucky to continue the journey together. So we're going to go into our social media questions. So I have 3 social media questions for you. These are submitted by our listeners, and I go through it and I pick 3 that may resonate with what we're talking about in the conversation today. So our first one is, how do you prepare a room or a space and yourself for where you're working at?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think it's so important to kind of prepare the space in our own energy body. But I have this whole pre-session ritual that I do before any call, including this podcast. But it sounds complicated, but it only takes about 5 to 7 minutes. And it typically includes just energetically clearing the room and my energy field. And then I do a few minutes of breath work to kind of release what isn't in alignment with the session and call in the energy and the qualities that I'm trying to come from during the session. And then I offer up my sessions to the divine and to divine will, the greatest good of all, and specifically for the highest truth of my particular client. Yeah. And then I just set an intention to come from deepest love and highest consciousness as I'm working with clients.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's so important to create that ceremonial space. Whether you're doing the energy work, I'm a yoga teacher, and even getting that, like sitting down, let's start with an intention. Let's be in breath. Let's calm the nervous system down. And so it's so important to have that. One of the reasons, we play the music in the beginning is to set the tone for the podcast, and even before.
Yeah, that music was awesome. I loved that.
And even just preparing, before we begin, and creating the space around the laptop and the microphone and placing that positive energy for everyone that we connect with. So it's so important to do that, to set that intention and to create that ceremonial space.
Totally.
So our next question is, how do you explain somatic embodiment to those who are not familiar with it?
Yeah, that's a great question, because a lot of people are unfamiliar about exactly what it entails. But to me, my foundation that I come from is that it's a healing modality that kind of fosters this connection between the spirit, the mind, and the body. So our body and the sensations of the body are known as our soma. So that's where the somatic part comes in. So tuning into the body in order to fully embody this vessel as deeply as possible and connect to all of our sensations, and knowing from that deep place of embodiment and connection of spirit, mind, and body, our most profound healing potential lies there. And most of us go through our whole lives without really being in our bodies. So then when we do tap into that space, for some people, it's the first time they've ever tapped into the felt sense in their whole life, because there's so much there that their spirit kind of doesn't want them to have to deal with. So when this happens, we often come across areas that are storing trauma that we weren't aware of, or that are holding tension. It's kind of becomes this roadmap for our healing, and we can kind of dive into those places in a way that feels easeful to the nervous system of the person that I'm working with, but that really kind of removes all these roadblocks that we have to our goals that might be getting in the way without our kind of conscious awareness.
Beautiful, beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. For those who are brand new to this curious beginner, it may lead them in a whole other path. So thank you.
Yeah, totally. Thanks for asking.
Yeah, of course. So our third question is, what steps do you take to help a client take responsibility for their healing?
Yeah, I love this because I believe so deeply that our deepest healing comes from the healing that we're able to foster and tap into ourselves. And I think that's the healing that truly lasts a lifetime. And that's what I love about the process of somatic embodiment, is the client is the one who is really responsible the whole time. They're going where their feelings are guiding them. It's not me telling them where they need to go. So I might teach them some ways to like resource themselves in the beginning, how to like titrate their experience so it doesn't become overwhelming, or kind of calm their nervous system down if they need it. But the rest of the time, I'm kind of just asking them questions about themselves and their felt sense and their emotional experience, and then guiding them through these processes of how to discover themselves in new ways that they might not have tried before. And I think it really places a lot of the responsibility on the client when they are the one who's kind of going where their soul is guiding them, instead of me saying, okay, now we're going to work on this today. Now we're going to work on this next session. It's really just like, what's present for you in this now moment, and kind of just flowing where their energy wants to flow.
Beautiful, beautiful. And how wonderful is this, for our Reiki practitioners that are listening, to do this before the Reiki session, because that helps the nervous system, gets you relaxed so the energy can flow. When we have a client come through the door, they may have had to go through traffic and all kinds of other crazy things. And maybe they got into a fight with their significant other. Maybe they just had a really bad morning, and they're coming in and that energy is just all over the place, and they need to get a sense of grounding. So how beautiful is to bring something like this in, to begin that session, to get you in that space of, okay, we're relaxing, the nervous system's calmed down, right?
Yeah.
So what a beautiful thing to bring in as another modality to blend that together with the energy work to get it going, right?
Yeah.
You got to get relaxed.
Yeah, I totally agree. And it's like you said, like our clients have so many experiences of their own. And if we aren't coming from a place of embodiment and nervous system regulation, then we could get triggered as well and kind of just magnify or multiply what's going on in their own energy field, instead of providing the container for them to kind of sink in deeply,
Right,
so I think it is super important.
Yeah, because we have various systems of Reiki, from money Reiki and like holy fire, for example. And in money Reiki, they bring in you're invited to bring in affirmations to get you settled, like crystal Reiki, you hold a crystal or have that grid. Holy fire, they bring what they call an experience and a meditation to get the nervous system down. But if it's something that doesn't resonate with someone, and somatics does, that's something amazing to bring in for your clients. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love
Yeah,
that.
just helping people kind of feel in their body what's coming up for you. Where do you feel it in your body? What does it feel like? And then you can kind of cater the Reiki, the energy work,
Mm-hmm.
whatever you're doing with them
Yeah.
to their personal experience.
Right. And it helps also to clear that clutter of the mind so that you're able to see clearly, right? Because
Yeah,
when you're agitated, right? When you're coming in all stressed up and tensed up, you can't relax. And then that
right.
energy is not going to flow and
Yeah,
it'll be
totally.
difficult to do the work. The blockages are there. So
Yeah.
wonderful, wonderful. So, as we've been talking, is there anything else that maybe you have forgotten to share or you would like to share with our listeners? So, you can share that now with us. We'd love to hear.
Yeah, thank you for opening the space for that. I was trying to think of anything else I wanted to share, but I'm just really feeling super grateful to be able to have this conversation with you, Tracy.
Yeah,
And
thank
your
you.
energy is so uplifting, and I really feel truly in my heart that whoever this is meant to land with, it will land with. And anyone who's feeling called to kind of like diving in deeper, I have so much, so many different avenues for that, including what I said earlier, the workshops, the one-on-one sessions, but I also have free content on my website, free content on Instagram, free emails that I send out. So there's something for everyone. And I would just invite whoever's feeling called or aligned with the energy or the frequency of what I have to offer to just kind of dip your toes in however it feels comfortable. And I'm really looking forward to kind of connecting with the people who it feels resonant with.
Wonderful, wonderful. And the International Center of Reiki, they have once a year their Reiki retreat in Sedona. So if any of
Beautiful.
our listeners here
Yeah.
are with the ICRT, the International Center of Reiki, and you're going to Sedona,
Yeah.
hey, check you out. That's where you are. So
Yeah. Totally. We can even just meet up for a tea or coffee and chat.
yeah,
I'm down for
absolutely.
that. Anyone who wants to reach out or who's in the area, I would love that.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Ashley. This has come to the end of our journey. I deeply appreciate you sharing your journey with me. And for our listeners, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Tracy. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And I really love connecting with you in this way.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right, our wonderful listeners, if you would like your question featured on our show, just reach out to us at www.readysetreiki.com or social media. And we are always welcoming any kind of suggestions, recommendations. Also, check out our platform, the Feather Sister Wellness, where we have yoga, meditation, and Reiki trainings as well. And Millie will have an upcoming free Reiki share a third Wednesday of every month. So I'm going to leave you with Millie's tagline: to see beauty in all things is a choice, so choose wisely. So I'm Tracy C. Wright, and this is Ready, Set, Reiki.